The morning sun lit up the peaceful countryside trail, where Sarah walked her German shepherd, Max, like she did every single day. The quiet rustle of leaves and the chirping of birds made it feel like any ordinary morning. But this day was about to become anything but ordinary. Max, always obedient and full of energy, suddenly stopped in his tracks. His ears perked, his nose to the ground, and his body tense. Sarah tugged the leash lightly, puzzled by his behavior. "Come on, Max," she said. But Max wouldn't move. Instead, he began to pace around a small patch of dirt near a bush, sniffing frantically. Then he started digging. At first, Sarah thought he was just following the scent of a rabbit or squirrel. But something about his urgency unsettled her. His paws were fast and focused, dirt flying in every direction. He whined loudly between frantic digs. Sarah's heart began to race. Max had never acted like this before. She kneeled beside him, brushing some of the dirt away. That's when she saw it, a patch of matted fur, barely visible through the soil. Her breath caught in her throat. "Oh my God," she whispered. She thought it was a dead animal, maybe something that had been buried long ago. But then the impossible happened. It moved. Sarah stumbled back, trembling. The small body gave the slightest twitch, a barely there gasp of breath. It was a puppy buried alive, but still breathing. Tears welled in her eyes as she called out to a nearby jogger for help. "Please, someone help me. There's a puppy buried here." People gathered. A man ran to his car to grab a small shovel. Someone else called animal rescue. Max never left the spot, standing protectively over the tiny body, as if guarding it with his life. This wasn't just a lucky moment. It was a miracle. A dog saving another dog. A hero with fur and 4 legs who refused to walk away when something was terribly wrong. What happened next would capture the hearts of everyone who heard the story. The puppy's condition. The mystery of how it got there. The bond that would form between the rescuer and the rescued. And the heartbreaking truth that would follow. But it all started here. With one dog who wouldn't move. With one life that refused to be buried. And with one woman who decided to trust her dog's instincts. Max wasn't just any dog. He was a trained German shepherd, once part of a local volunteer canine unit before being retired into Sarah's care. At only 5 years old, he still had the alertness, the sharp instincts, and the unshakable loyalty that made him a natural protector. He had been by Sarah's side for nearly 2 years, ever since she adopted him after losing her husband in a tragic accident. Max became more than a pet. He was her emotional anchor, her reason to keep going. Every day, they took the same trail that looped through the outskirts of town, a mix of gravel paths, forest patches, and peaceful open fields. Max had his routine, sniffing the bushes, occasionally chasing after butterflies, or sitting patiently while Sarah paused to rest on a wooden bench beneath the large oak tree halfway through the path. But even in his calm demeanor, Max never lost his edge. He could pick up on small sounds, detect unfamiliar scents, and sense emotions in people and animals. Children in the neighborhood called him Detective Max because of the time he found a lost kitten stuck inside a drain pipe. He wasn't just observant. He was a silent guardian. Sarah had always trusted Max's instincts. He would often stop and look towards something before Sarah even noticed what was going on. One time, he growled at a stranger who turned out to be breaking into a parked car. Another time, he led Sarah away from a snake hidden under leaves. Max didn't just respond, he anticipated. That morning, when he froze mid-walk and refused to move, Sarah's first instinct wasn't fear. It was curiosity. She had learned by now that Max didn't act without a reason. And when he began sniffing the patch of ground with such urgency, she felt her heart sink with the weight of possibility. Something was wrong. Max's digging wasn't chaotic. It was focused, purposeful. He pawed gently but quickly, moving in circles, careful not to hurt whatever he sensed below. He whined every few seconds, as if pleading for Sarah to help. Sarah kneeled beside him, her mind spinning. "What is it, boy?" she whispered. She brushed her hands over the dirt, and that's when she felt the shallow rise and fall beneath the soil. A living creature, weak but alive. In that moment, everything changed. The quiet walk became a rescue mission. The peaceful trail transformed into a crime scene. And Max, her loyal companion, became a hero once again. This wasn't coincidence. This was instinct sharpened by training, fueled by loyalty, and driven by a connection only dogs can understand. He knew that life was hiding beneath the earth, and he wasn't leaving without it. Time seemed to slow as Sarah stared at the trembling lump buried just inches beneath the soil. 100 thoughts rushed through her head. Was it alive? Who would do something so cruel? Was she too late? Max kept digging more carefully now, his powerful paws moving the earth with practiced precision. Each scoop of dirt revealed more of the tiny creature's body, frail, limp, and covered in dust. The fur was crusted with dried mud, tangled with roots, and packed tightly with soil. It was a puppy, barely old enough to open its eyes, and was clinging to the last threads of life. Sarah gasped and reached in with trembling hands. She cleared away the final layer of soil around the puppy's head. Its tiny chest rose and fell, barely, but enough. There was a weak breath, a twitch, a whimper so faint it could have been the wind. "Oh my God, you're alive," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. A passerby had stopped nearby, alerted by Sarah's calls. He rushed over, phone in hand. "Should I call animal control?" he asked. "No," Sarah said firmly. "There's no time. We need help now." Together, they cleared the area, forming a soft bed of grass and cloth beside the puppy. The man handed Sarah a small water bottle, and she poured a few drops onto her fingers, gently moistening the pup's dry, cracked lips. The puppy didn't resist. It simply lay still, exhausted, trusting. Max sat a few feet away, watching intently, his ears still perked. His chest puffed as he let out a soft, protective growl, as if daring the world to try and harm the tiny life he had just uncovered. Sarah cradled the puppy in her arms, her fingers brushing away the last of the dirt from its fur. It was a girl, just a few weeks old, skin and bones, and probably underground for hours, maybe longer. But how did she end up there? The hole wasn't deep, just enough to cover her. Whoever did this didn't want her found, or maybe didn't care if she was. The thought made Sarah's stomach turn. Someone had buried this puppy alive, intentionally. This was an accident. It was cruelty in its purest form. More people gathered, drawn by the noise. A woman offered her sweater. A man checked his phone for the nearest emergency vet. Another offered to drive them there. Everyone was moved. Everyone was shaken. But no one more than Max. Max didn't bark, didn't move. His eyes were locked on the puppy. He had made a promise, not in words, but in instinct. He had found her. Now he would protect her. As Sarah stood with the puppy bundle in her arms, she looked down at Max. "You saved her," she whispered. "You're her guardian angel." And in that quiet moment, standing on the same dirt that had almost become a grave, a story of death turned into a story of survival. The drive to the animal clinic felt like forever. Sarah sat in the back seat of a stranger's car, the tiny puppy wrapped tightly in a soft blanket, her frail body barely responding. Every few seconds, Sarah leaned in close, checking for signs of breath. Each shallow inhale was a miracle, each twitch of her paw victory. But time was running out. The driver, a kind man named Jeremy, didn't ask questions. He drove fast but careful, sensing an urgency. Max sat in the passenger seat, his eyes glued to Sarah and the puppy. He didn't bark. He didn't fuss. He just watched, alert and ready, as if he understood that this wasn't over yet. When they arrived at the clinic, the staff rushed him inside without hesitation. Sarah handed the puppy over, her fingers trembling, her heart pounding in her chest. A vet named Dr. Lin took one look and called out orders. Heat lamp on. 4 fluids. Oxygen. Let's move. Sarah sat in the waiting room, Max beside her, resting his head on her lap. The walls were quiet, but her thoughts were loud. Who would do this? Who could bury something so small, so helpless, alive? Minutes felt like hours. Finally, Dr. Lin returned, her face serious but calm. "She's alive," she said gently. "Weak, dehydrated, malnourished, but alive. If she'd been down there much longer, she wouldn't have made it." Sarah exhaled, a weight falling from her shoulders. She looked down at Max. "You did it," she whispered, petting his head. The vet continued. "She has a faint heartbeat, shallow breathing, but her lungs are clear. She might be fighting an infection, so we've started antibiotics. Her temperature is low, but she's already responding to warmth and fluids. Sarah felt tears stream down her cheeks. Relief, gratitude, anger, everything all at once. Dr. Lynn hesitated, then asked, "Do you know how she got there?" Sarah shook her head. "My dog, Max, found her. We were just walking. He wouldn't stop digging. I thought it was a dead animal at first, but then she moved." The vet's eyes softened. "German shepherds are special. They feel things we don't. He saved her." That night, Sarah stayed by the puppy's side at the clinic. Max lay curled up near the door, never more than a few feet away. The puppy, who they now called Hope, was still fighting. Her breathing slow but steady, her body small but filled with the will to live. As midnight approached, Sarah sat beside her, gently holding her tiny paw. Max sat on the other side, ears twitching at every sound, eyes fixed on the baby he had rescued from a silent grave. She was buried, left for dead, but she didn't give up, and neither did Max. In that sterile, quiet room, surrounded by machines and blankets, something sacred was happening. Life was returning, one heartbeat at a time. And it all began with a loyal German shepherd who refused to walk away. The hours following the rescue felt like a blur. Inside the clinic, everyone moved with urgency, treating Hope as if she were made of glass. Dr. Lynn and her team hovered close, monitoring every vital, checking every inch of her fragile body. It wasn't just medicine keeping her alive now. It was the unstoppable will of people who refused to let her go. Sarah didn't leave Hope's side, not even to eat. Max remained just outside the treatment room door, pacing softly, his nails clicking against the tile floor in a rhythmic pattern. He didn't sleep, didn't sit. He just waited, watching, guarding. Hope's condition was touch and go. Her breathing would slow, then pick up again. Her heart fluttered with weak beats, like a dying candle trying to stay lit. The vet had placed her under a heating lamp and wrapped her in warm towels, and slowly, painfully slowly, her little body began to stabilize. The story spread fast. One of the bystanders from the walking trail had posted a short video online, Max digging furiously, Sarah uncovering the buried puppy the moment the tiny creature moved. Within hours, the video had gone viral. People from all over the world were commenting, sharing prayers, and asking how they could help. Donations poured in. Offers to adopt the puppy flooded the clinic's inbox. But Sarah knew in her heart, if Hope survived, she belonged nowhere else but with them. The vet staff named her condition severe hypothermia and oxygen deprivation, but they had hope. Dr. Lynn smiled softly when she updated Sarah. "She's a fighter. Not many would survive what she went through. That dog of yours? He's a hero." Sarah reached out and touched Hope's tiny head. Her fur, though still matted and patchy, felt warm now, a world of difference from the cold lifelessness she had when they found her. Hope stirred her touch, a faint whimper escaping her throat. It was the first sound she'd made since being rescued. Max, hearing the sound, poked his nose into the room, ears perked. Sarah opened the door wider, letting him step in. He moved slowly to the side of the table where Hope lay. He sniffed gently, then sat down beside her, resting his chin on the edge of the table, watching her sleep. That was the moment Sarah knew this wasn't just a rescue. It was the beginning of something unbreakable. Hope needed care. Time, food, medicine. But above all, she needed love. And Max had already given her the most precious gift of all, a second chance at life. The hours rolled by, filled with tension, but also with quiet miracles. A stronger heartbeat, a little more movement, a soft sigh that sounded like peace. Everyone had done their part. But Max? He had done the impossible. He heard what no one else could. He acted when no one else noticed. He saved a life when every second counted. And now, the real healing could begin. The days that followed were filled with quiet progress. Hope remained under observation at the clinic for a full week. Her condition gradually improved, from barely breathing to wagging her tiny tail whenever Max came near. Every milestone felt like a miracle. The first time she opened her eyes, the first time she stood, trembling but determined. And through every moment Max was there, he lay beside her during feedings. He nuzzled her gently when she whimpered in her sleep. He growled once, low and protective, when another dog barked too close to her room. Even the vet staff noticed it. Max had taken on the role of a guardian, not just a rescuer. Sarah visited daily. She brought new blankets, small toys, and even her late husband's old hoodie that Max used to sleep on, something warm and familiar to Rap Hope, Indiana. Sarah had been through her own losses. Her husband's passing had left a hole in her heart that only Max had managed to patch. But now, with Hope recovering in front of her, something deeper began to heal inside her too. She remembered one night sitting by Hope's kennel as the pup slept soundly under a soft heat lamp. Max was curled up right outside, his tail resting gently across the doorway like a protective barrier. Sarah whispered into the quiet, "You didn't just save her, Max. You saved me too." By the end of the week, Hope was strong enough to be discharged. The vet gave strict instructions: small meals, gentle activity, keep her warm. Sarah nodded, holding the tiny puppy in her arms as if she were made of gold. Back home, Sarah prepared a cozy bed beside Max's. But to her surprise, Max lay down first, and Hope toddled over, curled up against his chest, and fell asleep with a soft sigh. That's when Sarah knew. The two were now inseparable. The days turned into weeks, and Hope began to thrive. Her fur grew back soft and full. Her eyes sparkled with mischief. She chased butterflies in the yard and barked, a tiny squeak of a bark, at her reflection in the mirror. But no matter where she went, Max was never far behind. People from around the world kept asking for updates. Sarah started a social media page for Max and Hope, The Miracle in the Dirt. Photos of their cuddles, walks, and playtime melted hearts everywhere. Schools shared their story. Animal shelters used it to raise awareness about abuse. Rescue groups contacted Sarah for interviews. Their bond had become a symbol of survival and pure, selfless love. Max, the hero, Hope, the survivor, and Sarah, the woman who believed in both. They weren't just a family formed by chance. They were proof that even the deepest pain can lead to the most beautiful healing, and that sometimes the strongest love begins buried just beneath the surface. Hope's journey didn't just touch Sarah's life. It reached millions. People from across the globe watched the once buried, barely breathing puppy transform into a happy, healthy bundle of energy. But beyond the photos and updates, there was something deeper that this story left behind. It wasn't just about the rescue. It was about what the rescue meant. In a world full of noise, cruelty, and distractions, it was a dog, a German shepherd named Max, who showed what it means to listen to the silent cries no one else can hear. Max didn't need words. He didn't need logic. He simply followed his heart and his instincts, and because he did, a life was saved. Sarah often sat on the back porch in the evening, watching the two dogs play in the yard. Hope darted around with joyful yips, tail wagging like a metronome of happiness. Max, older and wiser, trotted calmly behind her, always watching, always nearby. She knew now what true loyalty looked like, and what second chances really meant. She thought back to that moment on the trail, the moment Max refused to move, the moment he started digging. That moment had changed everything. It had turned a routine walk into a miracle.